Hi, folks. Just getting set up and ready to go. If that works.
Oh my God, that worked.
Hi, Tillie.
Oh, wow. Hi, Sean.
I always feel like a old person when I use the Instagram Live.
I
It's
can't.
like it's a horror every time.
I
I'm amazed it worked.
It worked. I clicked on it and I was like, how do I join? And yeah, no, I really, it's a great feature and it's useful, but I don't get it. I don't get it at all.
Yeah, yeah. The good thing about not having power until about an hour ago is that I didn't have time to like get nervous or
Hey,
to overthink it. It was more of like, thank God we're able to do this.
we're old pals. What's there to be nervous about? I mean, I guess people are watching us, so it's not just us hanging out.
Thousands and thousands of people will be watching.
30 people.
Well, thank you so much, Tilly, for joining tonight. I know you're a busy person. You got a lot of stuff going on, so I appreciate your time.
First.
For those folks who've joined us tonight, my name is Sean Watkins. I'm the owner of Athenaeum Comic Arts. We represent some of the most fantastic cartoonists around, including Tillie Walden. I don't even know if you really need an introduction, Tillie. I feel like you're just like
I
world
make
renowned at this point.
comics.
Makes comics. That's it. Yeah. So Tilly has been kind enough to join us tonight to chat about her career, original art, and other random things. And we're also kind of celebrating the second year of Athenaeum Comic Art. So it's our
It
birthday
already
month.
2 years, Sean?
Hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. You've added so many artists. Like you started off with a pretty small roster of people selling original art, and it was just like every time I looked at it, you had added another amazing
It's
artist.
hard to say no when these folks are coming to me with these fantastic pieces of art. I guess that's a good segue
Mm.
into talking about what. So when I first I was looking through my emails, and I think the first time I reached out to you was in like 2018 or
Ooh,
2019,
that was a
and
while ago.
it was a while ago. And you were not selling your art at that time. I think you had in the past.
Yeah.
And I reached out to you and said adore your work and I'd love to buy a page if you were interested. And you actually let me buy a page, which was really exciting, which hangs in my office upstairs. Um,
Was that
so what?
was that the cover to I Love This Part?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Which you know, it was one of those things. Collecting original art, there are kind of stages of it where you start, kind of. Well, I start small because I had, I think, at least well, yeah, no, I had Athena and Atticus at that point,
Yeah.
and I didn't have a ton of money to buy art. And I remember you were very generous with the price on that piece. But still, I had to sit down with Deborah and I said, all right, I will give you 30 back rubs in this amount of time if you allow me to buy this page. And it's one of my favorite pieces in the house. It's kind of like the center point of everything in my office. So I
Aw.
thank you for letting me buy it.
Oh, of course.
Um, so what made you decide to sell your art?
You know, it's interesting. We're kind of in an era right now where not every cartoonist can sell their art because a lot of people have sort of a partially digital process or like a completely digital process. And I've always been, I think, probably like 70 or 80% of my process is traditional. And I started making graphic novels in 2015, and like the art really just piled up. Like it and I started, I think, with my first book, The End of Summer. I remember taking the original art really seriously, where I really wanted, yeah, I wanted the pages to be like friggin' beautiful. I was meticulous, um, and I did the tone directly on the inks, which I now know is like, it makes it hard to then like scan the inks and like get the black to look, but I just like, I wanted the original art to look the way the book looked. And it didn't, I wasn't doing it because I wanted to sell the art one day. It really was just because it sort of like fulfilled something in me. It made me really happy to see the art that way.
Yeah.
And long story short, I years later ended up with just a massive pile of art that looked really good.
Hmm.
And I had a public email address, and I really think people just started asking me to buy it. And I really thought about it, and I was like, do I actually need this art? Like, is it still doing for me now what it did for me when I drew the
Right.
page? And I realized it wasn't anymore. Like, what I get from the art is when I'm actively working on the page. And once the page is done, I kind of forget about it. And I put it in a box, and then like I'm ready to like work on the new thing. So it was like a really logical conclusion to be like, oh yeah, I should sell original art, but it's so annoying. It's so much work to like to ship it, to package it,
Mhm.
and then like some pages, I remember from The End of Summer, there's one page where like Lars is in a little boat, and it was like my favorite page from the book, and I sold it and I put it in the mail, and I was like, what if this gets lost? I was like,
That's
then
good.
this page is gone forever. So then and people internationally would reach out to me to buy art, and I had no idea how hard it was to ship internationally, and I learned. um and so I was overwhelmed by selling my art, but it made me really happy because I don't look at it a second time when I finish it. And when people buy the originals, I mean, people have told me they look at this stuff I've made every day, and it kind of makes me feel like it has this new life. It's very special.
So you don't kind of put up any of your own art in your house, or no?
No, the only time I'll look back on art I've done is if I'm working on a book and I'm concerned that the book is bad. And I'm like, oh God, have I bungled this one? Is this book just no good? And then I go back, I lay all the pages out on the floor and I look at it and I'm like, oh no, it's fine. And then I can put the pages away again. Sometimes I need like a confidence boost. So I'm like, I got to go back and look at it once and make sure that this looks okay. But no, I don't think my art is hanging up anywhere in our house. We have a lot of now other artists hanging up
Yeah.
all around.
So what made you decide to work with me? I remember I remember bugging you a
Yeah.
bunch early on. Back when you had a public email address, I found it, and it was early stage of my collecting, and I was like, Tillie Walden's amazing. Reach out to her. And we just kind of kept writing back and forth. And I'm always like super concerned that I come off as like some weirdo dude who's bothering folks. But I really like that sort of pen pally like connection thing. And so yeah, I was really surprised when, you know, folks started to kind of reach out to me
Mm-hmm.
to get represented. Mostly because at the very beginning, 2 years ago, I I was still learning how to
Yeah.
do this, right?
Yeah. It was such an easy decision. On one side it was like, this is a way to get my art in so many more people's hands, because I don't really have time right now to like actively sell it. Not only like because I work on books, but because it's like I have this baby coming, like all this stuff to do.
Yeah.
Um, but mostly I think the reason that I wanted to sell original art with you is because of when I met you in person at King Arthur Flower, which is this, it's a baking company, and they have this little cafe that's near where my wife and I live. And Emma and I went to meet Sean after having only ever communicated with you over the internet. So you could have been anyone, but you showed up with your wife and kids, and we sat under this tent and just hung out. And I was like, Sean's delightful. Your wife is delightful. Your kids are delightful. And on top of it all, for whatever reason, you really do care about art. And I can sometimes get in a state where I'm like, this shit doesn't matter. Like, I could burn these pages and I don't really care. But you had so clearly had a passion for, especially for indie comics, which is honestly kind of rare. I feel like you find really, I mean, look, there are devoted fans for everything everywhere, but indie comics is very niche. And to find someone who appreciates indie artists, wants to help indie artists make money, and wants to help indie artists like actually be valued at the same level as writers and painters and all other creative types. I don't know, just it meant a lot. And I was like, you have like the right attitude towards original art, and you were fun to talk to. And Emma and my wife agreed I remember when we got in the car after meeting you, she turned to me, she was like, that was so much fun. And I was like, I know, that was so much fun. Let's sell art with him.
I know. I mean, I felt connected with the both of you early on. I mean, we trick you with our kids. We bring out the cute kids, and then everyone kind of folds.
Yeah, that's honestly true. They were adorable.
I remember, we drove like a couple hours to come meet you from where we were staying, and I think Emma had said, "Oh yeah, we don't know if we'll have enough time to pull the art together for this, but we can talk about it." We spent, I think, like 2 hours not talking about original art.
Yeah.
And going back to your car, you were like, "Here's all this stuff," and I suddenly the big box of art, and I was like, "How the hell am I going to get this home?" Like, it involved a lot of packing and being very because if people who are watching, they may have bought pieces from me. I'm very anxious about things getting destroyed, and so I overpack. So traveling with like your priceless art gave me a little bit of a panic attack, but look at us now.
Look at us now. You did it. You have that incredible, or there's an incredible story, I feel like, that involves you over packaging art and like a postal worker like leaving it in a puddle.
Yeah.
But the art survived, I think, right?
Someone reached out to me, and they were like, "This is the second package I bought from you," which is always fun to start reading that.
Yeah.
Because you don't know where it's going to go. But they said, I thought you like completely like overdo it with packaging, and then the package was left in the rain for an hour, and when they pulled it out, it was dry and fine.
Beautiful.
I'm both precious about art in some ways. I think folks are sometimes too precious about art, like putting it in a portfolio to never be seen again because you want it to last for all of the time. But at the same time, I think you and all cartoonists and artists put so much passion into those pages that to like shove it in an envelope and say good luck is a disservice to that labor, right? Like, I think, one of the things that I talk to a lot of cartoonists about is like, you are selling your art for too cheap, And I think there's this sense of, especially in like the indie world, that like, I don't know, where you're just trying to like get people interested, and folks are like giving away their art, and I understand, like, it's you want to be wanted, right? You don't want to price things where people can't afford it, but at the same time, if everyone's doing that, you can't make a living. Like
Totally.
cartoonists, many cartoonists have other jobs, part-time jobs, full-time jobs on top of what they're doing. And my goal was always to help support you all, right?
Yeah.
Like finding out that people don't make that much money, even though you're creating like dreams. Like this, as someone who like I'm a wannabe creative, right?
Yeah.
Uh, I- I look at what you're capable of doing, and it's so impressive, right? I mean, it's not only impressive, it's like life changing to some people. Like I'm sure you've heard that from people who've read your books, that this
I
book
have.
has changed my life. I think about the world differently because I read this, and you're getting paid nickels to do that. It's like
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense to me, you know?
I know, and I actually think that one of the reasons that cartoonists tend to undervalue their original art is because of often the length of the comics and of the
Yeah,
graphic novels is it you lose a sense of importance for each individual page because you're so wrapped up in like, oh my God, I've got to do this 200 times.
yeah,
Um, and I had no idea actually you told me this, that people tend to like pages where like a significant moment happens or a character is introduced, and people like covers, and I had never thought about that before. I was like, they're all the same. They're all just like, I have to thumbnail it, I have to pencil it, I have to ink it. Um, but yeah, also comics just in general, like no one treats us like fine art. No one,
yeah.
we're the like forgotten little sister art form, which is kind of fun. Like it is still always delightful to tell people what I do.
Yeah.
Um, for a job. It's just so much fun to be like, I'm a cartoonist, and see how they take that.
Well,
I think
you're the Vermont Cartoonist Laureate now, right? That's
I
as
am.
fancy as you get.
That's it's a 3-year term, so I'm the Vermont
That's
Cartoonist
amazing.
Laureate for 3 years.
I just see you like in a convertible car, like in a parade, going like this down the road. Do they have parades for cartoonists in Vermont?
They don't have parades, and it would definitely not be a convertible in Vermont. It would be either our Jeep or our Subaru.
Mm,
But I did get to meet the governor, and
it's very
the
exciting.
state house like did a motion, and I had to like stand up, and they announced me. But the day that they announced me at the state house as the cartoonist laureate, they were also honoring a girls basketball team that, against all the odds, like went to the final competition. And so so it was like me and the basketball players. It was
That's
wonderful. I was like,
amazing.
I would want to share this day with this all-star basketball team.
Before we get off the topic of original
Mhm.
arts, I just wanted to bring up something that I think a lot about, because you had mentioned, cartooning is sort of in its own space and people don't
Yeah.
value it as much. One of the things that was really upsetting to me early on was realizing that, like mainstream comics
Yes.
that tend to be whiter, more male dominated, that
Hmm.
original art is like stupid expensive. People pay so much money for it, right? And you can buy a page from like Fun Home for a couple of grand, or you can buy Spider-Man, whatever. No, and there's nothing wrong. There's lots of craft in Spider-Man. There's
Totally.
nothing wrong with that. But the fact that I was seeing folks of color, women,
Mhm.
folks in the queer community selling art, and the expectation from
Yeah.
collectors as well was that art should
Right.
be cheaper, right? And it
Right.
like drives me crazy. And I think I've like on this like secret mission to bring help in my small way,
Mhm.
bring this art to folks so that they can realize how amazing it is, right? Like if I had known about, if I'd been a young person now, although it's kind of also terrifying to be a young person in this current world, but knowing about comics and the indie scene,
Mhm.
like, oh my God, I think it would have changed me as a person, right? Like
Yeah.
I didn't know, right? I was reading Green Lantern and whatever, which is fine,
Right.
but the ways in which indie cartoonists craft narrative around personal experience and identity, I think is amazing. And I think the medium of comics is able to tell stories in such a unique way, right? That's different than film. It's different than books and novels. And I just hope that, part of Athenaeum's little piece of the world is that, folks like yourself who are fairly well known in comics, other people when they come to the site will see some of the other cartoonists and say, hey, that's so exciting, like that looks beautiful, I really want to read that. Because at the end of the day, for me, it's more than just about original art. It's also about building an audience, an inclusive audience, right? That telling people that the art exists and that they can have it, but also acknowledging that even a $100 page of art, it's really expensive for a lot of people, right? So go buy the book, go buy the print, that's okay. Everybody has to experience the world in different ways, and it sucks that we live in a capitalist society, but at the same time, that's where we're at. So yeah, I just wanted to, I don't know if you have thoughts about that, but I think about the sort of prejudice that's built into comics in general, and how I would like to help that not be the case.
It's really interesting, and I honestly think that for a lot of people, like the indie scene and the mainstream scene in comics, a lot of times there isn't crossover. So I went years without really knowing anyone who worked ever for DC or Marvel or worked on any big properties, and I still don't know that many people who work in mainstream comics. And I think what's so sort of devastating is that a lot of people don't even really know how much this art is going for in the exact same medium by people with the exact same amount of experience, but because they're in mainstream comics or because they're a white guy or they have a certain level of credibility, the pricing is just insanity. It's so different. And you're also really right that I think what Athenaeum does well is, besides just selling original art, I see when you post pages, I'm oh, what is that? What is this? Who is this person? I'm going to follow this person. What is this book? I want to read this book. The word exposure is loaded in the comics community because it has a legacy of a lot of tactics that, industries have used to exploit young artists, especially, and artists from marginalized communities. But you provide a lot of exposure for a lot of artists. And I think what's so cool about Athenaeum is there isn't a house style. You really have cartoonists from across the spectrum stylistically and tonally. And I what else, where else does that exist? I don't, and you started something that I feel like someone should have started so long ago, right?
Yeah.
When the rise of the graphic novel was happening in the early 2000s, no one saw this opportunity of how can I support these cartoonists and sell their art. So thank God you came along.
Well,
now maybe there will be copycats.
I hope so. I mean, there are a few people, but they work with folks who've been around for 30 years,
right?
And and they're great folks, and they've brought a lot of money to the people that they represent. But I'm kind of surprised 2 years in that there isn't competition with what we're doing. At this point I have to turn people away, unfortunately, because I can't. This is not my full-time job as much as I would like it to be. I do it late at night when the kids are asleep. But I think there's the comics community is weird, especially in collecting, because I think there's some competition, and there can be some competition and some proprietariness to it.
Sure.
And for me, it's always been about expanding, bringing more people in. You know, if somebody
Right.
is competing with Athenaeum, good.
Yeah.
Like more people need to be
Yeah.
represented, right?
Yeah.
And the more competition there is, the better artists will be treated. The more money you bring in, the bigger the audience you have. You can combine forces. You know, there's a lot. You know, it's sort of an endless spring, right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of cartoonists. There are a lot of amazing books out there. I mean, like Fantagraphics, Drawn Quarterly, et cetera, are all producing fantastic books right now. Too many. I can't keep up with them.
I know.
And those people, there's still a lot of folks working traditionally that need representation. So
Yeah.
I think the thing is, like, I wouldn't call it a thankless job because folks are pretty nice to me. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work and takes a lot of time. So you have to be a little bit crazy like me to want to do it.
I also think that it's sort of, I mean, this isn't everyone's circumstance, but I think this is sort of like this really special thing that has come out of the way you sell original art for artists. Like I've experienced this, and I know a lot of other marginalized creators have experienced like a lot of like hate online, or like potentially dangerous situations when interacting with strangers on the internet. And
Hmm.
you have made it possible for me to get my art to the general public while also letting me sort of stay safe. It's really
Yeah.
like it's really cool, because I just sort of cut myself off at a certain point from communicating with, and like I don't have a public email address anymore, just because there was too much going on, and I really couldn't handle it. And it's something that like my agent does for me. Like he sort of fields a lot of emails for me, and he does it for a lot of especially his female and queer clients. But that's something you're doing too. Is like you're kind of like standing guard around all these creators and all their art, and making it like a really like comfortable and safe way for our art to like find people who love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky as, you know, a cisgender, white-looking dude. I have a lot of privilege, and I think I can exist in a space on the internet, even with comic stuff, and I don't have to deal with a lot of the things that folks have to deal with. And you know, even as someone who used to study this stuff and thinks a lot about it, it kind of came to me as a shock, because I was like, why? I don't understand why anyone would want to shit on this community.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the way the world
Yeah,
is.
yeah, it is. And you know, like some groups of people have to deal with it more than others. And I
Mhm.
just think it's like it's every artist's dream is to find an audience, and finding that audience when you do finally get it can be complex. And I think that people aren't always ready for that, but like the only way to cope with it is to just sort of have a community of people around you, whether that's, Sean or my agent Seth, or like all the people around you who just sort of help support you and keep you safe. Um,
I think it's especially difficult now, for young people who have grown up in this space where,
I know,
you know,
what is that
especially,
like?
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, was the beginning of it, but it's
Yeah.
proliferated, and you know, I think it's indicative of a lot of different spaces, but in comics as well, this sort of blurred line between the private life and the professional.
Totally.
And you know, like in comics, there isn't HR, right? Like
Yeah.
when I
It's so
see people communicating and fighting or whatever else in the space, I'm like, you know, as somebody who has been in more kind of, you know, now I'm in a corporate space for my real job,
yeah.
and I think, oh, don't put that in writing. What are you doing? Like that's going to be around for forever. Why are you doing? Just stop. Like people are goading you.
Yeah.
And I think it can be really difficult to find that balance of, wanting to express yourself and wanting to connect with human beings, but the more kind of public you are, the more that you get attention, and it's not always positive.
Yeah.
Which is why I've thought a lot about putting together like mentoring programs through Athenaeum. I have a lot of ideas, Tillie.
You gotta slow down, man. How much time do you
No,
have in the evenings?
I have a lot of. I just don't have to sleep. That's the thing.
Oh, okay, that's how you do it.
I I don't know. I think it's like a working class background. My dad passed away when he was 61. Didn't get to retire, and I look at this life as fairly short, and I want to do something that's impactful. I don't have to be remembered, but I want the things that I do to be meaningful to people, not only me, but to people. And so that I do get into these like cycles of maybe not taking care of myself as much as I could. But at the end of the day, I get to talk to you tonight. I get to put on this convention, small press convention in Ann Arbor. Like it's just
Did that happen
exciting.
already?
No, it's October 7th.
Okay, I thought it was the fall. That's exciting.
But it's coming up. So
You're doing that too, on top of everything.
well, I, why not? It's again, it's like endless. What I'm addicted to is that you just ask people and they say yes, and I never knew it was
incredible.
that. I think folks are so, and I for a long time was so shy and nervous, and I didn't want to bother people.
We're all shy. We're in comics.
And yeah, you can get just amazing things can happen if you're just like, hey, you put yourself out there a little bit. One of the things, and I'll be curious to hear your experience, because you don't attend very many conventions anymore. I didn't until I was much older, and I was super nervous when I first started to go, because I didn't want to bother anybody, And then I realized fairly quickly that, the cartoonists are also super nervous and awkward, and you just have to like have a bit of confidence in yourself, and you can chat to anybody. But what are your experiences with? We're kind of jumping around, but with kind of that more front-facing tabling kind of stuff. Is that something that you're interested in doing? I know you've slowed. No.
No, I have always found conventions very difficult, and I think have I only ever tabled once? I think I've only ever tabled once, and I did it, and I was like, I don't.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, I don't want to do this again. This is really hard. I mean, the reason I got into comics is I love being alone in my bedroom drawing. And the everyone who's done cons knows the like unique devastation of someone picking up your comic, reading the entire thing, and then kind of making a face and setting it down and walking away. And I've always, when I'm at home and I'm like in my process, I've never really had trouble with my self-esteem and with confidence. But when I think because despite the fact that I'm very good at playing an extrovert, I'm very introverted. And so when I get in like a big crowd of cartoonists, I just like, it just sort of devastates me at the end of it. I'm just like, I'm a husk of a person. And I also think that I did too many conventions in too intense of a way because I had so many books come out so quickly that I just sort of year after year I wasn't tabling, but I was going to conventions, I was doing panels, I was doing interviews. I did San Diego Comic-Con a few times, and every time I was like, I never want to do that again. And every year there was another reason why I had to go back and do it again. I found it super overwhelming, even though this delightful thing happens where you actually meet these cartoonists who you've been sort of circling for years. Like I finally met Jillian Tamaki
Yeah.
And now we've run into each other at a few things, and it's just like it's so delightful. I'm such a huge fan of her work. And I remember when I met Ryan North, I was like, you're amazing. I want to just have dinner with you. And so we just had dinner. And so like I'm so torn about cons, because you get those incredible connections, but they totally exhaust me. And I'm a lot better now, where I am very picky about going to conventions, about what I'm sort of willing to do. Being
I couldn't
pregnant
even get
was
you
an
to come to mine.
amazing excuse, because oh, so sorry. I'm not,
No.
I can't go to that. But yeah, I also think that I, from afar, I have a lot of love and respect for the kind of circuit of indie conventions, because I think they're really well run.
Yeah.
Mike's, SPX, TCAF, it's
Mm.
Cake. They're incredible. And my students, because I teach, my students are always tabling and talking about it. And I do think it's a really good experience for them. But I'm not a zine person. I will consume zines, but you could not pay me enough to print out my own comic and staple it. I'm just too lazy. I work so hard to get these damn things drawn. I will not be bothered with printing it too.
I,
But
you know, I,
some people love zine making. It's like their
yeah,
passion.
yeah.
They love screen printing. I don't know how to screen print. I have a very crappy printer. I can't do any of that.
I mean, I think you spend all your time drawing. I mean,
All of it.
the prolific nature of your career thus far, right? Like I have a pile of art right next to me. Just the especially with the like seeing the process of you doing the commissions recently,
Yeah.
and how quickly you're able to crank out these beautiful. I
Fun.
said to you, like, you should take on cover work because I think
I
you could do
know.
okay. I think you're not lazy. You just have different priorities.
Yeah. I can really sort of only afford one gigantic priority, which is drawing comics all the time.
Mm.
Um, but I also wonder if I did books in like a slower way, if I'd have more sort of room inside myself for like conventions and zines and prints and covers and all this stuff. But I've sort of accidentally scheduled myself in a way where I'm always working on two books at once, and
Yeah.
so there is no time. There's no time, and now there's going to be even less time when I have this baby. So
More power to you. I'm
yeah,
so
right.
excited to see how that goes. It's going to be great. It's
It's
going
going
to
to
be
be
great.
great. It'll be fine.
Um, I know I don't want to keep you too late, but a couple other questions based off of kind of what we've been talking about. Um, you came at comics pretty young. I mean, you're still pretty young. Um, what was that experience like of getting a lot of attention so early on in your career? Was there a lot of pressure between projects, or were you just like, I'm just cranking through it, like doing my thing, being creative, What was it like because how old were you with your first book came out?
I was 19.
19.
And it was a small press book, the end of summer. And then quickly after that, I Love This Part in a City Inside, and then Spinning, which was not small press, which was
Right.
with First Second. Um, it's funny. I don't have any reference point of doing a career any other
Right.
way, but I do think that the I don't remember a feeling of pressure. I remember a really riveting feeling of I'm making my living doing this, because I made so many books so quickly, I was able to make all of my living off of my own comics, and that was such an empowering sensation that I was kind of willing to do anything. I was like, I'll do even bigger books even faster, like I'll just, because I was just like, I can't believe I'm paying my rent and buying my groceries just by drawing all day long. So that was amazing. But I do think that I don't know. I don't know how sort of doing well really young affected me completely. I do remember feeling really annoyed at how often my age came up because I just sort of felt like
Yeah.
I I know more now that I'm a little bit older, where I'm just like, good God, we really like fetishize youth, and
Yeah.
it's so kind of yucky. And I also look back now on a lot of experiences I had where, like, I can see now that people were sort of talking down to me or treating me in kind of either an infantile way, or feeling really threatened by me, this sort of like young girl in the room who's like really good at comics. And um so it, you know what it did is, in one way it was totally wonderful because I was able to make so many books, but it really isolated me.
Mm.
And I think that I really struggled to form like friendships and social connections for a long time because I really just sort of felt kind of trapped in this persona of like this young cartoonist who makes gay books all the time. And it wasn't until I slowed down on making books that I started to kind of open myself up to be like, wait a second, I just spent the ages of 19 to 25 doing no dating and only graphic novels. And like I was like, oh my God, I'm in some ways like one part of myself is so grown up and so mature, and another part of myself is like still 19. And and I also, like, I didn't go to college.
Yeah.
I only have been making books sort of nonstop. And I'm very lucky that when I did finally kind of open myself up more to the world and focused less on my book and more on books and more on being like a human being, I very quickly met my wife, and now like have everything I've ever wanted, like a house and a baby and two cats. And it's so it all sort of came true very beautifully. But yeah, that's sort of an incoherent answer to, I'm always so, I never know how to talk about kind of
Yeah.
my early career, because I also don't ever want to seem ungrateful for sort of all the amazing opportunities that came my way. But I think if I, looking back, I'm so much happier now than I was then. I mean, I think a big part of me was happy because I was drawing, but another part of me was like very sort of suppressed and confused. And I was also online a lot because I felt like I had to be. And it was really night and day when I realized, like, wait, I don't have to be online this much. No one has actually dictated that I have to be online this much, and that helps so much.
Yeah. Yeah. Being online. What's interesting with Athenaeum, because I have a bit of an addictive personality to things at times, and I get hyper focused and fixated on stuff. And I studied the interwebs for a while,
Right.
and I got really addicted to just like doom scrolling, and what's been nice with Athenium is that it's all like productive now. It's all for the business. I like don't use I have my own social media accounts, but I got rid of one, and now I barely post on the other because I'm so like trying to be creative, trying to get like beat the algorithm. But it's not about like, it's about getting the word out there. It's about marketing, right?
Yeah.
Rather than that sort of like, I don't know, like feeling like you're missing something. Not that that's everyone's experience, but for me, it was like kind of searching for identity a bit,
Yeah.
in a weird way. And I don't think it's super healthy to do it that way. I think like put your phone down and like go talk to people in real life is if you can, if you find your own kind of groove, and lucky enough to find your own groove, that's a good way of living, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I find being on the internet easier, like you do, sort of with a purpose.
Hmm.
Like, I'm gonna get on, I'm gonna post about this book. I hope people buy it. I'd love to make royalties so I can like fill our propane tank full of propane so we can heat ourselves up this winter. Yeah, a purpose is important, but I feel like I see more and more now that I've been teaching for a little longer. I feel like more of my students struggle with having to be online and what that means, especially in like an early kind of nascent career where you're just getting off the ground, you're trying to figure out like what you want to say. I mean, you're always trying to figure out what you want to say. I never know what the fuck I want to say about anything. But yeah, I think it's just harder and harder.
When you feel like you're screaming into the void, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I
you're
feel
up
really
against it feels like a competition because honestly, it kind of is a competition.
right.
You know, like
Right.
people rise up and get more attention, and that takes away from other people getting attention. It's God, it's such a mess.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same everywhere, though, right?
Yeah.
There are cartoonists that have been doing it for 30 plus years who are amazing, and they just don't have the same presence. They don't have the same popularity as other folks, and
Yeah.
I
They make
think
it work.
they make it work,
And that's
right? One
cool.
way or another, they have um, been able to keep doing it, and I think that's in some ways way more impressive.
Oh,
um,
oh yeah.
because they're doing
Totally.
it because they really love it. Like that's one of the things I realized early on about collecting. No one gave a shit in my life
Yeah.
about comic book art. My spouse, Deborah, she thinks she's like paper. Why would you spend money on paper?
Yeah.
Right. And so I'd be like, I would post it on social media. I'd be like, look, Tillie Walden page. And people would be like, yeah, okay, like that's pretty. And I'm like, but you don't understand,
Yeah.
and a lot of like Athenaeum is like that. It's interesting because I found a lot of collectors who are in similar kind of world, like lack of don't have the community, and we're kind of pulling people together.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Before I let you go, I wanted to ask you. You've been doing comics for a while now. What still excites you about comics?
Mm. You know, I always think like every time I finish a book, I'm like, there isn't going to be an idea that's going to make me pumped about this crap again. It's like, how can I go through this again? 300 more pages? Like, really? This is so hard. But it's so funny. It's like, it's already happened. Like, I already know when I finish Clementine for The Walking Dead, and when I finish the junior high books with Tegan and Sarah, one more for each of them. Um, I already know what I'm going to do next, and I'm so excited because it's so different from everything else I've ever done. And so that I think what still excites me is the fact that there is still so much I haven't tried, and there's still so much that I want to get better at, and so much that I haven't drawn. You know, you do as a cartoonist, you find a pattern and you kind of stick to it because that's also a way to cope with the sheer amount of labor that is a graphic novel, which is like,
Right.
if you know how to draw trees, god damn it, you're going to put trees everywhere because you got to find a way to fill that page. And there's still sort of so many ways that I haven't filled pages, and there's so many, I don't know, I think there's still just like so many kinds of stories that I haven't told. Um, so I still feel very optimistic and very excited about comics. And even about graphic novels, which are like so intense to do. And I'm watching my wife work on a graphic novel. It's so much work. I'm trying to kind of work on my books despite my state. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is so hard. I can't believe it takes this long to do a page, and this is only one page in a sea of hundreds of pages that I have to do. Um, but it's just like the medium is just so not done. There's still so much to do. And I just love that I can make comics that are 90 pages. I can make comics that are 900 pages. Like it's all open.
Yeah.
So I'm still really pumped. And like, I'm really excited about what's going to come next. I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to jinx it.
No, I mean,
But
you can tell me off off Instagram Live. But
I'll tell you off Instagram Live. Yeah.
are there folks that you think we should be reading? Are there people's work that really excite you?
Oh my
I know
God.
one, Emma Hussinger's work is pretty spectacular. Also an Athenaeum artist.
Yeah, so my wife's book is middle grade and it's called How It All Ends, and it comes out next year. And I'm biased because I love her, but also I'm not biased because very practically speaking, it is actually excellent. And she works in a way that is so different from most kind of YA and middle grade cartoonists. It's so, so exciting. But someone to read that you may already know about, but Dan Knott did a book called Hidden Systems, which is a graphic novel that, just you wait, it's about how the internet, electricity, and water work in this world. But here's the thing. I am generally not a huge fan of nonfiction comics because I feel like generally they're too text heavy and they don't always take advantage of the medium. Dan made understanding the internet the most riveting experience. I am still so excited by the fact that I actually know how the internet works now after reading his book. And he's so inventive and he's so passionate about the form. That's someone that I always think of. You've got to check out Hidden Systems. And then Natalie Norris recently published a book called Dear Minnie with Fantagraphics that is about sexual trauma in her youth, and it's fully watercolored, it's panelless, it does really inventive things with text. It's also just like a really beautiful exploration of trauma. So those are my two that I would say you've got to look out for. But honestly, just go to the Athenaeum website and look at all the artists on there. There's so many good comics out there.
You're a good salesperson, Tillie.
No, you're a good salesperson, Sean.
Doing okay. Speaking of sales, so the next Clementine book comes out in October, is that right?
Yes. Yeah. We'll see who comes first, the baby or the book. The baby's supposed to come before the book. He better not. If he's 2 weeks late, he'll come in October, but we'll see.
Well, we're excited for both events. And then you're working on junior high or another junior high book that's going to come out. When does that come out?
I have no idea. I think it comes out next year. I think there is some flux right now about when next year. Because this baby has slowed me down and the book is not done yet, but it'll be done eventually.
Oh, yeah. Well, Tillie, I think we've covered quite a bit in our time together. Is there anything else you want to leave our audience with?
No, that was great.
I do want to say that I adore you as a person,
I adore you.
Your art, and I feel so privileged to be able to get your art out into the world in a different way. And I bought a safe because of your art.
Nice. Good for you.
Nervous about it. But it's such a privilege and an honor to be your art rep, and to just help you out in a small way.
A huge way.
Well, thank you so much. You all, you're watching us, so you can just follow Tillie's account. And yeah, if you are interested, we have lots of, these are actually pages that are on the website yet, because I'm lazy too. These pages are like mind-boggling. Like, I don't know how.
I used a really small pen.
Yeah. It's there was a page that we sold early on that I didn't realize until we had sold it, or it was in the process of selling it, that it was actually a slightly different version of the printed page. And the amount of work that you had to put into this, into both pages, like I was like, I would just give up. I like it,
Yeah.
like this beautiful first draft is a fully formed like printable page, and you were like, nah, let me do another one.
Yep.
I
It's
love
a
it.
big thing in comics is I redraw a lot.
I love it. I get to see it. I get to see it. Well, if folks are interested in supporting Tillie, of course, go to your local stores and buy her books. But also, we have a lot of fabulous original art available. We may be doing something special around the time of the new baby coming. So
Ooh, very
feel free
exciting.
to join the mailing list and follow our accounts, and yeah. Well, thank you, Tillie.
Thank you, John.
Appreciate
This was
it.
wonderful.
Talk to you soon.
Talk
Bye.
to you soon. Bye.